So I recently released a blog showing you how to create dark mode in Lit. In this video, I'm going to walk you through that blog. This is an introduction to Lit, but not necessarily web development. So in this video, I'm going to assume that you have a background as a developer, but maybe you've never encountered Lit before. You can find all relevant links to this blog in the description below, including links to my social media and also my GitHub. And with that said, let's dive right into it. So here's the project. Let me show you what I built. So I basically scaffolded out a Lit project, and it uses the standard template for the most part, with some few modifications that I made to it. The main modification is adding the dark mode, of course, since that's what we're talking about. I have this button here that'll toggle between dark and light modes. So getting this toggle to work is really simple. There's two things to this. One is the CSS, and second is the component that actually toggles the CSS. So we can find the CSS here. These are our custom properties. This is the default CSS that we load. And then we go and we have this custom attribute here, and we override these custom properties with different values when the theme is toggled. So let me show you what I'm talking about in more detail. If we inspect our HTML, you're going to notice that custom attribute on the HTML tag. You can find that here. Right now it's set to data theme light. What we're going to do is when we click this button, we're going to set that data theme to data theme dark. And that's essentially what causes the toggle to happen. The only thing that's happened differently is when we use this selector here, we're going to apply these CSS custom properties. We're going to swap out the text and we're going to swap out the background colors. And we get this effect. Now, of course, when you're creating your theme, you're going to have more custom properties than just text and background. But the reason why I simplified this is because I want to drive home the point of using custom properties to change the values to get a different look and feel. And you can really do this for any kind of theme. It doesn't have to be light and dark. You can apply all sorts of things that you want. Just use a custom attribute like a data theme or whatever you want to call it, and then give your theme a name and swap out the custom properties appropriately. The reason why I'm using this data theme is because there is something called the dataset API in HTML5. And when we change this value, we actually have access to that in JavaScript. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So this is our custom element myToggle. This is the button you see here that actually does the switching of the theme. And the code to do this is actually really simple. Basically, we have an event handler. That's this click right here. And we give it this function, or method really, since it's a class. This method is called toggle theme. And you can see the code here. The only thing we're really doing is we're selecting the document element, and then we're detecting whether or not dark has been applied. And this is where the dataset API comes in at. We can read that data theme attribute, and we can do a comparison to see if it's dark. If it is dark, we're going to set this to true. And then down here, we're going to determine what our new theme is going to be. So if it's dark, we're going to set it to light to toggle it, and if it's not dark, then we're going to set it to dark. That's essentially the toggle effect. After we do that, we use the dataset API again to set the theme to be dark or light. The cool thing about the dataset API is that when we change the theme value, the attribute that's associated with it updates as well. So when I click this button and I change it to our new theme value, since the attribute is updated, our CSS properties kick in and we see the theme appropriately. You don't have to do anything to get this to work. It's just part of built-in JavaScript. So the last thing I want to call attention to here is this line of code right here. We're using local storage. And the reason why we're using local storage is because we want to persist the state of our theme value. It'd be kind of a bad experience if a user were to title a theme and they were expecting the theme to be dark, and they came back to the theme and it was light every time they had a page refresh. So this way, if I toggle the theme to dark and then I refresh the page, it still stays dark. And the reason why it does that is because we're setting the value into local storage, which of course means that we need to read that value as well. So we want to read local storage from the element myApp. This is kind of the standard convention. Essentially in Lit, you're usually going to have an app element of some kind that acts as the overreaching element for the entire application. And then everything else is an element that is within this global element, so to speak. You can find myApp under elements, myApp, and then myapp.ts. And what we want to pay attention to is let's lifecycle hook or lifecycle method first updated. This essentially runs when the DOM is available for the web component. So anything you want to do with DOM manipulation or reading or writing to the DOM, you kind of want to put in first updated, and it only runs once. So when we look at this code here, what we basically want to do is just read local storage to get the value of the thing. Then we check whether or not local storage has a value for thing, and then we set the thing. And that's all we really need to do in order to read the thing from local storage. One more thing I want to draw attention to in this file is this line of code right here. Typically in a lit element, you're going to write your CSS inside of JavaScript. And the reason for that is because when you're writing a web component, you're actually creating a constructed style sheet, which is created from JavaScript. This is just part of the web standards. But I like to write my CSS in its own file. And the way we can accomplish doing that is we can import our CSS, and when we import it, we can use this inline value right here. I'm not sure what to call it. But yeah, basically we put question mark inline on here, and this tells our bundler to import this as a string. And when we get this styles as a string, we can use this method from lit called unsafe CSS. And when we use that method, we're basically going to have this return something called a CSS results. And that is what lit is expecting to get our CSS to work as a constructed style sheet in the web component. Now, you might be wondering whether or not you should use this because it's called unsafe CSS. The reason why it's called that is because it's kind of expecting you to be loading styles from some external source. But we don't really have an external source. We are controlling our styles, so we don't need to worry about sanitization or anything like that while using this. And that is pretty much it. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, concerns, any feedback in general. I'm very interested in that kind of thing. Or you can follow me on any of my socials and reach out to me there. And yeah, I'll get back to you.